Welcome back to the Crypto Clown World channel. I am your host with the honks, Jason Bruce. It is the 9th of March 2024. This is the first official Crypto Clown World podcast after our very dry run last weekend. And joining me today is my co-host, Mr. Christopher Lundy. Chris, are you with me?
I certainly am. How are you today, Jason?
I'm good, man. Thanks for joining me. How you doing?
All right, just taking things slow and steady. I think that's a good approach. Whenever the markets get a little overheated, sometimes you can uh, take yourself a little too seriously, and
Yeah.
it's always good to kind of take a step back and look at things and not panic because the movements up can be in some cases just as stressful as the movements down. So
Yeah, the
it's important
euphoria
to
is starting to
take
build a little
emotions out
bit,
of the equation.
for sure. Um,
Yeah.
so, with Bitcoin's kind of been slow and steady, really, when you look at it, even though it seems like it's just absolutely pumping like crazy, it's like it's just taking a few thousand at a time, right? And it just sort of flags out, takes a few thousand more. Um, really, really wild. So, obviously,
Like you've been saying with these measured moves, like what you've been saying with these measured moves, when they start to get going, they can surprise a lot of people, and that's why you do your fib extensions and your fib retracements up and down, so that you know where to set your targets. And
and
I've
100%,
always
that's a
been
great
really
segue because I'm
impressed.
just going to jump into a chart here and we'll kind of take a look at the fibs on Bitcoin. Um,
Yeah,
I just kind of want to lead off the show
and
with this real quick, and I'll let you jump into some, geopolitical and world stuff and potentially some, fundamental stuff. But what I'm seeing right now for
oh
Bitcoin
yeah,
on the hourly is it's a little bit questionable because it looks like we might be in a little bit of a rising wedge. There's a little bit of bearish divergence that came in. So we have to be pretty careful at this level. We've seen some altcoins get pretty heated. So if you have profit, it doesn't hurt to take a little bit off the table and consider re entering Monday or Tuesday. Uh, as always, none of this should be construed as financial advice, but we're hitting an area in the market where we could see some retracement. And I'm not talking like, back to 20 or 30K. I'm just talking a short term move back where we could even double bottom in this scenario where we kind of wick down here around this sort of 59.60 level. Like if this rising wedge breaks down, that would be the actual target. So we could see a bit of a scenario where we get a little bit more of a flush out in the market, and I wouldn't think that would be the worst thing right now, but we've been so bullish the trend is still up. So we need to be very aware of the fact that we could very easily end up pretty close to 80K, um, even by the middle of next week. So we could see a large move. It's totally possible. So,
yeah. It's just all of my mathematics I'd been doing prior to the time of this bull run showed me that our cycle top would be a, maybe a little bit less dramatic than I was expecting, maybe something between the 80 to 90K range. But from what I'm seeing on this chart, I think that we could easily clear 100K before summer. It's just if you look at what happened after the previous all-time high was reached in the or at close to the end of 2020, early 2021, when Bitcoin broke 30K around that time, you know, within about 4 to 5 months time, that Bitcoin was that was around the time it touched $69,000. So it did more than a 2x move the last time it cleared that all-time high resistance at 30K. then, and that was, you know, just over 3 years ago. So I'd be interested to see what that measure move looks like, because if we do something, equivalent to that, we're looking at easily a $150,000 Bitcoin minimum. So, what are your thoughts on that? Price targets.
Well, if we just take a little look here, and I'm going to do a little bit more of a sneak preview here as I haven't had a chance to get my macro video out yet, and I do apologize to the audience on that. But this right here, if we just take, this is the bars pattern, right? This is the move that was made the last time, where we went from the panic bottom in 2020 up to around 69,000. So if we just extrapolate that out, you're looking at around 360K, and we're actually a lot closer than people might realize, because of the area that we're at right now, where we're essentially flirting with the previous top, and we know that we get a parabolic move at that point. So I see the market as being very consolidative over the last 4 years, and we're actually at a point where we could see a lot more momentum come in, just based on kind of what we're looking at here. We could even look at like a much larger, rising wedge, but we flirted with this trend line. I talked about this trend line. We could even say, potentially this trend line could be moved, and you could be in a much larger rising wedge. So if that's the case, these targets are very realistic, and higher targets are realistic too. At the very least, I think, just as like a base case, not a bear case, but a base case, I think we're looking at about 170 to 175K just based on fibs. But if you start to take a look at a measured move, or a more extrapolated type of a look, especially with the liquidity that's coming in, we could see 200 or 300K. It's not impossible by any means. So when you look at the 2-week chart, like I'm looking at right here, we had a bearish divergence that started in 2020 and kicked in at the double top it started in 2017 and kicked in at the double top in 21. So that was a heavy bearish divergence, and we just broke that on the 2-week RSI. So that's a heavy bullish indicator that just happened there. So now we need to see, do we back test this on the RSI as support and stay really overbought for a time? Or do we have to come back down and retest, at least the overbought levels, if not lower? We're really extended right now, but we still have more room when you start to move out a little bit. So there's obviously more room when you look at this measured move, but is it realistic to expect that in the short term? Probably not. What I think we're doing right now, more than likely, if we take a look at this here, what I see is that we basically just made a very bullish move back into this channel. And this channel was created by the double top, where you had these two tops, you had the two bottoms here that were in that 28 to 30K range. And you saw an explosive move out of that range, first of all. But when you look at this, it creates sort of a rising type of a channel with these two spider lines, and we pretty much wicked right up to the bottom of it in February, had a little consolidation, and now we've just blasted through that this month. So what this shows me is essentially, anytime in technical analysis that you see a pattern break down and then you see a move back into that pattern, it's typically very bullish. So we're going to have resistance at the top of the pattern. That's going to be around 100K. depending on how bullish this moves. If it moves sideways for a little while, bounces off the bottom of the channel, and then comes up here, there's going to be some resistance around 100K, both, technical and psychological now. So this is kind of how we're setting up. How is this channel going to react? You do still have this purple line as support, which, as I said, this trend line could be, it could be moved. You could mess around with it a little bit if you wanted to, but that trend line was respected for quite a long time, and then we did sort of break down of it, and now we've broken out of that along with breaking back into that channel. So this whole thing right here, when you're talking macro, this is honestly, it's insane. And if you see a breakout of this, upper line here, and that retested as support, the likelihood is that you're going to at least 170K, if not, once again, into the 200 or 300,000 range or more. I don't know how much money BlackRock has or wants to pour into Bitcoin, or how much they're going to divert into Ethereum, or how far they're going to take this, but this shows me that they can take it farther than some people were looking at. And the 5.3 theory that Steve was looking at on Crypto Crew University, and some of the more, like, I don't want to call it bear case, but more conservative projections, which I looked at and said were totally possible. I've got this one set out here around 84,000. It could just be that we have some consolidation in this range here, and there's a super cycle type of a thing where we come up here, come back down, and then come up and make a higher top, kind of like we did back here, initially in 2013, when Bitcoin really just started to get cooking. So does BlackRock have the type of liquidity to inject into the market to make a move like that happen? They probably do. Will we see another double top scenario like that? I'm not sure. Will we get another blow off top like 2017? That's maybe a little more possible, because people said this run maybe resembles a little bit more of that, where we were seeing that consolidation and double bottom in 2015. So there's still plenty of questions to be answered in the chart for sure, but where we're at right now, and in terms of how bullish this candle is and the confluence around it, it's pretty crazy.
There's a couple of clues here several clues that speak to what you were saying about BlackRock, Jason. And a couple of things to mention are that BlackRock, they plan to purchase. I mean, I'm not talking about establishing them, but purchasing spot Bitcoin ETFs for the global allocation. And spot Bitcoin ETF cumulative trading volume crossed $100 billion this week. 100 billion. And these ETFs haven't been around for more than a few months, right? So the amount of volume that's coming into the Bitcoin trading pairs is going to absolutely dwarf what we saw in 2020, 2021 timeframe. From a sheer volume perspective by itself, from a percentage standpoint, we could be seeing some multiplier effects there as well. Something else is Coinbase, in many, if not all, of these ETF filings, is the custodian for the Bitcoin that's in these ETFs. And since 90 days ago, Coinbase's market share of Bitcoin has gone from 47% to 60% in the United States. That's their market share of the U.S. market. That does not necessarily mean that's their market share of the entire Bitcoin market itself. I doubt that. But their share of the U.S. market has gone up significantly, since that's where folks have to get their Bitcoin over the counter. They're the OTC custodian. So that helps you understand why Coinbase was having some issues displaying customer balances. I expect that they're going to be scaling up quite a bit on the infrastructure side as a result of this. Clearly, the demand for this asset is far higher than the establishment is telling the public. Of course, the public probably already knows, that are investors. But those are three things that I think will be important to look at, to say, if you combine those factors together, I don't think we're just going to be dancing barely above the previous all-time highs. So I think people are calling for like 75, 80K as the top. Or I think they're selling too soon. But if they bought earlier, that's fine. It's just a matter of not leaving too much on the table, but not leaving too little. And since we're just at the beginning of these moves, they tend to last a little bit longer. It's just a matter of whether or not this cycle extends longer, shorter, about the same. But that's why you have more than one exit target, and there's going to be plenty of liquidity. We're clearly seeing that, and these are spot, not futures ETFs. So, how sharp the corrections are when distribution starts to become a reality within this market cycle, I think will be interesting to see after the fact. When we do a post-mortem of this run, I'll be very interested to see how that goes. As for geopolitics, we still got this very bizarre situation happening, not just with the United States Navy and what's happening in the Middle East, but with aid shipments. Right now in Gaza, there are attempts to airdrop aid into Palestinian communities there by the United States and others. Problem with these is that the dropped aid only amounts to about 1 to 2 truckloads worth. Fortunately, within the last 24 hours, one of those aid airdrops did not extend its parachute and ended up ending the lives of a few of the people that were on the ground, including children. So these types of faux pas with aid are going to create some optics issues for Western countries that are making efforts to get aid in. Also, the Biden administration announced the establishment of a temporary port to bring goods in, and this could be simply damage control speech, because it takes a long time to establish a port, and if you're establishing a port in a war zone, you have to have some type of protection, and I don't see how that's a possibility. But if that does become a practical reality, we could see some changes there, but I don't see how that's going to be a practical reality, to be quite honest, because even now, people on the ground, they're refusing aid provided by the United States. They just won't take it. They'd rather die. And that's how principled of a stance that people are taking as a result of this. But as a result of many other financial decisions, there's something that could have long-term consequences, not just for the traditional finance markets, but crypto markets as well, and that's the seizure of Russian assets. Have you heard about this, Jason? These foreign exchange holdings of Russia that were confiscated by Europe?
I haven't. I was just going to say, it sounds like we may as well send the Palestinians AIDS at this point instead of aid. But at any rate, there's always been this tug of war with us and Russia and trying to suppress what they're doing, right? So what's going on there?
Mm-hmm. Well, remember how we were talking about Nigeria last week? Well,
Yes, sir.
Nigeria has applied to join BRICS, which
Oh,
I
wow.
definitely didn't see coming.
Okay.
I didn't see that coming, especially considering that they've been essentially following the IMF's orders in regards to the CBDC that they tried to shove down their population's throat over the course of the last 2 years.
Well, maybe they want a little bit more control over that. Maybe they think they can make their own.
Well, I think what's happening here is they know that the jig is up. They realize that there's already a free market established with, private, immutable infrastructure that won't go down, that's better than the existing system, and that there's essentially pushing against the tidal wave that will lead to the loss of their power. So I think that some adults in the room have decided to say, you know what, we aren't interested in provoking, a French Revolution style situation here or a Rwanda style situation here. Um, we want to be friendly with Russia because we have Russian friendly countries in the Sahel, which are just to our north, and they're not going to take very kindly to their African brothers and sisters being messed with and oppressed in such ways, especially in relation to South Africa's ICJ case in this context. So that's why I see North and Central Africa as being a very important geopolitical zone right now, because that's the area where the EU is now focusing to gain access to oil, but due to the rebellions in the Sahel, specifically in Burkina Faso, and there's one other country that escapes me at this exact moment. Um, they're not going to be able to gain access to that anymore. The French ambassador was kicked out of the country, and they're done. And they were kicked out of uh, the out of ECOWAS as well, which is it's kind of like an EU for North Africa or for the Sahel. Two countries were kicked out of it. So, and interestingly, those countries are also warming up to Russia and turning very cold towards the West, because France and Spain colonized pretty much the entirety of North Africa for the better part of the last several hundred years. And they're finding that Russia is a better guarantor of their economic and social stability rather than just themselves and Western financial interests. So that seems to be where the big tug of war is taking place right now. And if they decide to join BRICS, they're probably going to be more Bitcoin friendly, as I mentioned in the previous show. So so I think BRICS is focusing a lot on Nigeria right now, and for good reason, because like I said, adults in the room are seeing that there's a better way to do this, and at the end of the day, they don't really want to. They're not interested in constantly trying to cover their tracks, because not everybody in the halls of power are bad people. I think that's a problem a lot of folks are getting into, is painting with too broad of a brush. Sometimes I imagine what I would do if I was in the halls of power right now. I'm sure it would be a long inner dialogue. But anyway, some other things that are happening right now geopolitically involve food, and we are seeing some pretty significant problems with food distribution right now as a result of the energy crisis that continues to develop in Europe, and as well as Russia stopping all of its oil exports for 6 months. That is why you're seeing the EU focusing on North Africa so much more than they used to.
And what does that mean, folks? Russia's not exporting oil. What does that mean? That's supply shock. Play your oil stocks, not financial advice.
Precisely. So look to oil stocks and look to especially the WTI price, because I think that we're going to have steady movement in oil. I don't see it going nuts like doing a 2x or something like this. But if you're looking for a steady income play, I would say, Jason, that the world's figured out that oil's not going anywhere. And something else I wanted to bring up, this is older geopolitical news, but most container ship companies that exist in the world right now are refusing to transport Tesla cars and electric vehicles that utilize exclusively electronic infrastructure, specifically lithium-ion batteries, because of spontaneous fires that cannot be put down on the ships, causing the ships to capsize and sink.
Wow.
So folks need to look and see through this entire electric vehicle situation, because if you have one, chances are you're probably not going to be able to use it in the way that you're anticipating you'll be able to use it in. And pay attention to what these things can and what they cannot do, and you'll find that what they cannot do exceeds what they can do. So, it's just not financial advice, not consumer advice, but do your own research on that. Um, but with transport, that's very important, right? Because that's what ULEZ is all about. And for anybody that's not familiar with ULEZ, it's a scheme that exists in the UK right now, and some other countries under different names. But in the UK, it's referred to as ultra low emission zone, also known as net zero.
I would think the upshot
But,
of all this would be Elon building his own electric shipping fleet, and then one of those members of the fleet catching on fire in one of those lithium ion battery fires. But that's just me thinking.
right. Yeah. I mean, the amount of the, the tinderbox you're sitting on in a lithium-ion car is beyond description.
It does
Like,
seem a
you
little
literally
questionable,
have
man.
seconds to get out of that vehicle if it catches on fire. And of course, with these vehicles, whenever there's there were safety mechanisms that were in place that actually locked you in the car and would not let you escape.
Right, yeah.
Safety mechanisms where people had to smash the windows of their Teslas to get out so that they didn't burn to death. So it might be a good idea to get yourself some Stage Zero classic cars. They exist. Do your research. But anyway, something else that I saw that I think is going to be really important geopolitically from a market making standpoint, to speak to some of your earlier comments about Bitcoin, is that over the last 3 months, traffic to cryptos exchanges has gone up by almost 50% from August to October 2023. So
it's the same with traffic to my Discord, sir. The retail is coming in now, which means we need to be very cautious.
Oh, and something else about Nigeria that you're asking about BRICS is that their version of the Securities and Exchange Commission, they updated their guidelines for crypto firms to quote unquote stop criminal activity.
Yeah.
Whose criminal activity is the question. And yeah, so I think Nigeria is kind of having an identity crisis. Like, did they want to be tyrants, or do they actually want to solve their problems? You can't have it both ways. So I think right now they're saying yes to both of them, and that they need to stop hyperventilating and start doing things for the right reasons. But an update in the Do Kwon fiasco. Do Kwon famously revealed in an interview that there was a backdoor in Terra Luna that
imagine
allowed him to just take the money and run. Well, it has been ordered in a Montenegro court that Mr. Kwon is about to be extradited to South Korea instead of the United States.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know if this is good or bad for Mr. Kwon, especially considering that South Korea pretty much does whatever the U.S. tells them to do from a geopolitical standpoint, especially as it relates to high level criminal cases of U.S. citizens. So I think that if you've entered Terra, or if you got on the influencer train for any Terra Luna asset, now might be a good time to reconsider your investment priorities if you didn't get the message the first time around. Because I'm telling you guys, if you're listening to this podcast, you chances are you know who I am, or or know who Jason is, or you want to get more of a cordial take on the markets and a cordial take on the world. And if you want to be cordial in the new marketplaces, acting like Mr. Kwon is not the way to go. This is why you need to do your own research. Is that the projects that have the best marketing tend to also have the smoothest criminals, right? marketing does not make a project. The project makes it. So make sure that you do your research, and this is something that frustrates me about meme coins, Jason. It's like meme coins are great. They're hilarious. They can be great pieces of art. But at the end of the day, are you actually buying something of that? Are you actually buying something that can use to sustain yourself? Or are you
No,
gambling
it needs to be
coins?
looked at as a vehicle. It needs to be
Right.
looked at as a vehicle into things that are going to, benefit you more in the long term, some type of tangible asset, right? Because we all know
Right.
they're going to lose 99% of their value in 2 years. So get something
Mm-hmm.
out of it right now, build a little bit of
I will.
a Bitcoin or a Monero stash so that you have something that you can use on the side in an emergency for digital cash. Cash some of it out into metals so that you have something physical to put your hands on. If you make enough money, cash it out into real estate, or even buy a car because that holds its value, especially if you don't drive it that much and you buy it slightly used. So, um, yeah.
Yeah, the real physical infrastructure is always a great place to put your profits. Um, Frankly, I think it's helpful to not always just quote unquote take profits, but just use your passive income. You know, I you know even after bear market peaks, or excuse me, bull market peaks, when you get to the bear market trough, oftentimes you'll find that you're still up, 5 to 10x on your investments that you started with in there. So, not all of your trades have to be, quad entry, quad exit over a 1 week time span or a 24-hour time span or a 1 hour time span. You can go for the very long ones, but uh, one piece of information that I think is helpful to many investors that I was not fully aware of when I started in crypto is that only about 22% of all crypto projects make it more than 4 years. So if you're
I'm
looking to
surprised it's that
invest in
much.
something, yeah, but yeah, since 2014, over 12,000 crypto projects have bitten the dust in the last 10 years. So a lot of them had great marketing and great hype behind them, and that were considered to be like the top of the innovation heap. But again, propaganda is powerful, which is why you shouldn't listen to it and you shouldn't watch it. Look at the results, and that was one of the reasons why when I first came into the crypto space, I was looking at established projects, and you know, fortunately, I chose some good ones that have treated me well. That actually got me through some tough times because at the end of the day, we're looking at resource allocation and resource accumulation, and crypto is really the best place to get resource accumulation with small amounts of capital or large amounts of capital. And I think that we've got a unique opportunity here in this bull market, especially for investors that are not as well capitalized, because I think the upside this time around it's just better, because there's more on ramps with the ETFs in play. So uh, that said, should you get them through ETFs or get physical, the real thing? Of course, it's not physical; it's digital. The real digital asset, absolutely. The real thing is better in every single instance than a derivative. So, if you want to play derivatives markets, know your risk. But I didn't personally, Jason. I didn't get into crypto to mess around with derivatives.
Yeah,
And
that's the exact opposite idea of what I would like to think I was trying to do when I got into this space. And, it really is unfortunate that it does consolidate some of the power of the market into some of those hands. So it's a double edged sword, and I've said that all along. And, I said that when I first got into the market, to be honest. I'm like, this should be a retail movement. It should be driven by retail first. Retail should do their best to try and take the initiative when the market is down, as opposed to waiting, until we see all these green candles and all of a sudden we've got a new all-time high. Oh well, it's time to get back into the market. Should have been here the whole time. Never should have left. You know, and you got to understand what it is and just how it moves in cycles, and take advantage of that, and not be, you know, pushed around by the emotional side of it, and the, you know, the bandwagon side of it, and, you know, everything else. You got to understand that it is an actual player versus player environment. And, you know, as much as a lot of these coins like to preach community and everything else, we're really trying to make it out of this market and profit, and that means that somebody has to buy your bag at the top. So be willing to make that exchange, and you'll be in a better spot than you were before the market started, and you'll learn to appreciate how it kind of works a little bit better and how it can work for you.
Indeed. And something else I wanted to mention, Jason, this is the last talking point I have for today's episode, is Central Asia is going to be an extremely important center for crypto over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, but sooner rather than later.
And when we say Central Asia, be a little more specific for those who are a little less geographically inclined.
Two countries in specific, Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan.
Okay, I've heard
I'll
that
start
about
with that.
Kazakhstan. I have heard that they're trying to become a tech hub.
Well, they already are, because
Very
let's
nice.
think about data centers. Well, let's think about data centers, right? So, if we think about data centers, well, if I think about them, the first country that I became aware of in terms of the pioneering crypto mining data center space was Iceland. Because in Iceland, they have underground data centers. They don't have any problems keeping their server rooms cold because it's cold there all the time. And
How
they have
convenient.
extensive infrastructure, right? Kazakhstan has the same thing. When China was banning on-grid Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin miners were taking their rigs to Kazakhstan.
That's right. That's where I remember hearing that. They were able to just go right across
But-
the border and basically not have to skip a beat.
That's precisely what they did. And interestingly, Kazakhstan just made a major discovery of both a gold mine and a lithium mine. And apparently they're the biggest discoveries that Kazakhstan has made in a very long time. So I suspect that there will be coups or potential coups, as well as I would say overtures from Western countries to quote unquote establish relations, whatever that those two words mean in reality, with Kazakhstan especially, from a resources perspective, and from a crypto mining infrastructure perspective. Now, as it relates to Uzbekistan, Tether signed a memorandum of understanding with the government to develop blockchain and peer-to-peer telecommunication infrastructure with them.
Interesting.
And what that looks like remains to be seen, but of course Tether runs on the Ethereum blockchain. So
Such a strategic spot too, you know?
right. But when you look at cryptocurrency infrastructure, the projects are clearly not concerned about the energy consumption. And here's another fact
Right.
for the audience. Anytime you hear a politician tell you that Bitcoin uses too much energy with mining, oh, we need to audit all the energy use from cryptocurrency mining, here's a very simple fact that you can take with you. YouTube, the website, the streaming website, uses more energy than all cryptocurrency mining put together in the entire world.
Wow.
So the next time you hear a politician say that cryptocurrency mining is draining energy grids, tell them to shut off YouTube first.
So you're talking their
Because it
data
uses more
center
energy.
is consuming that much energy. That's wild that their servers are that
Precisely.
big.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's the thing, is that the energy usage is minuscule. It's on par with that of a typical automotive manufacturing facility, if you're talking a building filled with mining rigs, Bitcoin ASICs specifically. Now, Now, that's not to say that they're comparable in every instance, because automotive manufacturing and other types of manufacturing have been good at improving their efficiency rates so that their cost of production goes down. I think that eventually efficiency rates will improve with Bitcoin mining as well. I think that's going to be a necessity at some point as the hash rate as the hash rate continues to go up and the difficulty continues to go up. And I don't see a reason why BRICS isn't going to jump on top of this, because they know they need to protect Bitcoin with BlackRock's moves to consolidate it. So I expect to see more markets for Bitcoin in the East, as well as the ones that are established in the West, to counterbalance any efforts to consolidate the protocol or something like that. That's all I had for this week.
Enlightening as always, sir. I always appreciate your point of view, and I hope the audience did as well. With that said, Bitcoin seems to be violently busting out sideways here. So my guess is that we'll see a little more sideways and a little more grind through the weekend here, because we do have the volume dropping off a little bit. But I wanted to jump back a little bit to what you were talking about earlier, where, you're talking about the volume that was coming in, and I had to switch over to the actual US dollar index, because this shows like all the volume. This is everything that's coming in, right? So we really actually haven't seen this much volume come into the market since the initial push up from the bottom from 15K, and then this push up here from around 20K up to the like 27 to 30K area. So there's actually a bullish volume trend coming in. So, if I were seeing some divergence here with this volume trend where, say we saw a spike in volume, in this initial move up, and then, we were seeing less volume come in as the price was moving up, that would be considered a bearish divergence on a chart. It's a very, very simple technical indicator that you can use. But, in terms of the amount of volume that we're seeing here, it's a pretty good amount of volume. And in fact, when we look at where this candle's at, it's actually exceeded the volume of those candles at the initial stage of this run, and it's probably about the most volume that we've seen come into the market since the run up to 64K in early 21. So it's significant volume, and it definitely backs up what you were saying there. So I just wanted to confirm that there is quite a bit of volume coming in as a result of the ETF. Obviously, there's billions, coming into the markets right now. So as we take a look at this right now, we have to consider it is the weekend and those ETFs are not trading. So this is actually an opportunity for whales to come in and manipulate the market, and it's going to be up to them, how much they actually want to push things around and set up the institutions for a potential move over the weekend. So to me, it's kind of a disadvantage for the institutions, really, because they're only playing ball 5 days out of the week. So the whales still have an opportunity here, and ultimately, in my personal opinion, no matter how much Bitcoin BlackRock buys, they will not hold as much Bitcoin as active whales in this market. That's just my opinion, but I'm sure you could go on chain and back that up too. Because when it comes down to it, there's only so much supply left, and you may have to figure out, when they actually started entering the market. And it could be that they started entering earlier than a lot of people think, and that may come into the equation. But in terms of how I'm seeing this shake out, if you look at when they started custodying for those ETFs, and supposedly when we were being made aware of that, the likelihood would be that the whales still actually control this market in the long run. So that goes back to some of my analysis and fundamental kind of projections that I made with my video that I talked about, where the ETF might not necessarily be the best thing for Bitcoin, and potentially how we might see a flippening with Ethereum. because it all goes into the fact that BlackRock can get more out of Ethereum. They can get more control of Ethereum. And if they're going to get any control over Bitcoin, it's probably not going to necessarily be through the supply itself, but it may actually be through, you know, control of the miners and through forking the network. And I had this conversation with one of the members in the Discord yesterday. And if you're in the Discord, you can always feel free to jump in the voice chat. And if I'm available, I'm always open. So if you got questions, let me know, and we'll try and powwow. But with all that said, going back to the price action that we're seeing, we're really tight sideways right now because there's no volume and the whales aren't making a decision. So it could be that they're waiting for the institutions to make the decision as the week opens. But for right now, we're just not seeing a lot of volume or a lot of movement in the market. So when I see that happen again, it does open us up for potential price manipulation. And when I'm seeing this type of a formation here, as we zoom out a little bit, it is potentially a rising wedge. It does potentially have some bearish bias. There is potentially a bearish divergence that's still at play that possibly hasn't played out yet, where we may need to see the RSI reset on the 1 hour. So if that happens, we'll have to see where we come down to. We could come down to this golden pocket area or just a little bit lower. It would be like, around 63K, maybe just below 62.5 area. All right. If that doesn't hold and we see a double bottom scenario, then we're going to come back down and we're going to test 59 to 60K. And that's possible with the measured move of this rising wedge. So I kind of covered this potential scenario at the top of the show and what we might be seeing here. But this right here is not what I see as the most bullish pattern. And when it comes to my Bollinger Bands rules as well, I'll delete that fib so that you can see. We did get these closures here above the top band on the hourly, and we haven't seen closures below yet. So we're back above the 21 MA, which technically does keep us bullish for now. But any breakdown below that, and especially closures below this lower band, we're going to start seeing more movement down. If we manage to hold this level, as I was saying, the price target is pretty aggressive, and when you see a rising wedge break out, it breaks out parabolically, and the move could easily take us to $77,000 or $79,000, so just south of 80K if that does happen. So just keep in mind both potential scenarios. When we look at Bitcoin dominance, it's kind of in a channel on the 4 hour. Looks like at this point we've seen a golden pocket retrace, so maybe the Bitcoin dominance comes back up. It doesn't always necessarily correspond to the market moving back up. It could be that you'll see some selling out of altcoins into Bitcoin. Take a look at Ethereum here. There's kind of some similar action and a little bit of a rising channel. There is maybe now that I look at it, a little bit of hidden bullish divergence that's coming in here. So that could save us. We're at a point of control here. And again, getting tight with the moving averages. So we'll see how this plays out. Next 24 to 48 hours, we'll see some decision made on that. As far as the Ethereum Bitcoin pair goes, there's consolidation right now between the 200 weekly and the 200 daily moving average. And we have seen some of that action before. We did see a cross not too long ago, the 200 weekly crossing above the 200 daily. That's going to be bullish as long as price action can get back above this 200 weekly. So it hasn't established that as support yet. Consolidation between the two lends itself to some potential for that happening. But it looks like possibly the bullish divergence that we had here more than likely played itself out to the resistance at the 200 weekly, and now we're consolidating in that range here. So we'll see that pair make a decision here pretty shortly too, and then maybe this is a little bit of a cup and handle that's playing out here, kind of an ugly one, but we'll see how that continues to play out. If we take a look at the tether dominance, which may give us a clue here, This doesn't really look all that bullish, and it hasn't looked all that bullish for quite a while. It's made little spikes and then dumped back down, and it's essentially been bear flag city. So if we look at this, that's what we would call a descending triangle, and typically that has a bearish bias. The way that we're moving sideways right now could just be, again, a weak type of a move. So if we were to see this break down, we're going to see further movement down for the tether dominance, as that was rejected at the 200 weekly quite a while ago and hasn't been able to regain any type of real traction since then. So not what I would call bullish movement by any means, but we'll have to continue to see how this sideways consolidation plays out, because it's not totally giving us a clear picture yet. We're still kind of 50-50 right now. I do like the total 3. You had mentioned the total 3 index. Right now it looks like there was kind of a breakout and retest situation of like a larger bearish divergence on the daily. So there was a nice move up. There was this kind of wick back down and retested this level here that I was looking at as resistance. Price action's consolidating here, kind of just above the golden pocket actually. So the idea would be that since we've seen Bitcoin aggressively move up, past the 786 fib and, now kind of at and above the all-time highs, that you would start to see something similar for the altcoins, and that they would just follow and just bleed up. So, do we start to see potentially, these much higher levels for the total 3 market cap, where we're talking, 1.75 or 2.5 trillion? That would constitute a nice move for your altcoins if that happens. So keep in mind that is possible, and honestly probable at this point. But we are going to be coming up to some resistance pretty soon here, like long-term resistance on the weekly on the RSI. So we'll monitor that as well. For the altcoins, BNB is gaining strength right now. So the 3rd largest cryptocurrency by market cap. It kind of looked like it was in a bit of a rising wedge and breaking down to that, but the 1 hour is looking pretty strong. I don't know. We're seeing consolidation on the 1 hour above the 21, but when I look at BNB, this is like bullish action above the 21. We're seeing these green candles come in. Stochastics look a lot stronger, so probably $500 and higher coming for BNB. Jump over to Caspa real quick. Obviously, most people are pretty interested in what this is doing. Kind of seeing some consolidation on the 4 hour. We're in a little bit of a symmetrical pattern. If that does break up, the upwards target of that is around 32 cents. So it could see a very bullish move for Caspa. If we come up and we're rejected at the top of this pattern and lose a point of control and come back down and this pattern breaks down, I would look for, either these levels around here, around this golden pocket around 12 cents, or potentially even, some further retracement to the 200 daily. That would be around like 9 cents, maybe 10 cents area. So you would probably have to see a significant dip in Bitcoin for that to happen. And with this bullish divergence that appears to be creeping in here on the 4 hour for Caspa, that's probably unlikely. So I would say if Caspa is going to make a move on the 4 hour, Bitcoin's probably unlikely to dump, because they are proof of work coins and they do kind of move together in that regard. So number of other altcoins that I'm gonna jump through here really quickly. I did buy some Tara today. This is Taraxa. All right, you can look into this coin on your own time. I will say that this is a Token Metrics top pick. It is a low market cap. It has huge potential, and honestly, I think short term you could easily 3 or 4x this coin. And as we zoom out on the chart here, I do actually believe that we'll be seeing much higher price targets for this thing, and it could go as high as, not only 50 cents or a dollar, but maybe even $3 in the upcoming bull run. You could see even, 200, 300x for this coin. It's totally possible, and it's actually a bit of a Caspa clone in terms of that, like layer one proof of work, DAG type of a narrative. All right. Another one that's been very hot, and this thing's actually breaking out. My goodness, I'm making so much money off of this. Good Lord. A few $100s just turned into thousands for me, folks, on this thing. AGI, this is Delicium. It essentially creates like AI avatars, and this thing is just absolutely busting out. So anybody who's in this coin, you're definitely benefiting. The next target's around 65 cents, potentially 70 cents. I got in it on this coin. I believe I started buying under 5 cents and up to 6 cents. So looking really, really good for me. Wow. All right. Another one that I've been looking at is GPT Plus. This is kind of consolidating after a little bit of a breakout of this channel on the 4-hour. This was recommended to me by a group that's been pumping smaller cap coins. The last small cap that they put out on MEXC did a 25x. I didn't get in on that one. I am holding this one now, and I'm up 30% or so. So take a look for an entry on this one. You may see some retracement a little bit to the 21 MA and potentially to retest the breakout of this flag here. And I would look for much higher price targets. You could easily 3 to 5x your money in the short term. A larger cap coin that I'm looking at right now and that I've been buying and holding for a little while is Mana. That is technically starting its breakout of this Adam and Eve double bottom, and I've been outlining these double bottoms for people as very bullish scenarios in this market. So the last time that Mana broke out of this level, which was over here, where you saw breakout and retest of this level, which was around the 56 to 60 cents area, it made a huge move north of $5, almost to $6. So I'm expecting very bullish movement for this coin. It may take a little while longer for it to make this type of move. It may not be quite so impulsive, but I'm expecting it to follow the rest of the market once again in the total 3, the way I had just outlined a little while ago. So this is one that hasn't really technically broke out yet, and honestly, I do believe we'll have much higher price targets in the peak of the bull run. Possibly higher, than $5-10. It could go as high as $40 according to the measured move and the technicals, and that would play out to close to or around another 100x, which is pretty similar to what it did in the last run, maybe even more. I forget. It was down around 3 cents and moved all the way up to almost $6. So it did almost a 200x in the last run. There's no reason to think that it can't do 100x this time. All right, with some somewhat diminished returns. Even if it does a 20 or 30 or 50x, this is a great play from here. All right. Did have a few requests for some other coins. I'll jump into those right now. Take a look at a couple other gaming type of tokens. One is Alice. Ooh, this actually looks really nice. So we had just a double bottom type of a scenario. This chart actually reminds me a little bit of like the BNB double bottom. And then like a nice retest of the 200 daily here. So this is up about 3.5x from the bottom. But when we look at this coin, we just take a quick fib extension here. This has plenty of potential. even if you just get back up to the golden pocket, you're looking at a 20x. So this is a fantastic risk reward play, and an absolutely insane bullish case scenario would be like $800 plus. If we get a little more conservative, this thing could even hit $90, like very realistically. $200 potential. So could potentially 100x from here. I would say your base case for this thing is around $90. So 40 to 50x probably on the low side for this coin. I'm very tempted to buy some of this now. It's just a little bit extended on the 5-day, but I feel like it's just going to keep pumping. There's just nothing but headroom there. Yeah, that's a decent looking chart. That's a fairly bullish looking chart. I mean, you've had your breakout of the falling wedge already. This is very clear, very obvious. Pretty chart. So that's a good looking coin. I believe that's an Alex Becker coin. So only up 3.5x from the bottom, and easy short term. I don't want to say easy, but probably simple play short term is going to be like a 4.5x, 5x from here, and you can reassess, maybe take a little bit of profit, take your initial investment out, and let it ride. This looks great. I'm going to take a look at Gala. Gala's been really hot. Full disclosure, I am holding a bag of Gala. I do expect this to return to all-time highs. It's a fairly similar chart. Clean this up a little bit so we can see a little bit better. It just kind of depends on how you slice this up. Like, did the breakout occur here? Probably, and then you retested here actually on this double bottom where you had the bullish divergence. So that's probably technically still playing out right now. Yeah, that's your support there, and that's where you just bounced off of recently on the weekly. So this is all getting ready to make a big move, again, like the one that we just saw. So this is, to me, low risk at this point. If you just buy and hold, you're not worried too much about the short-term price action. It may come back down a little bit, but this could just run away from here. So, I would look for this coin to come back up to the 80 cents or $1 level, and you could see much higher price targets for Gala. I don't know why I don't have those outlined, to be honest. But we'll take a look here right now. Oops. Might help if I knew what I was doing, folks. So, north of $1, you're looking at $1.30, $2.15, $3.60. Potential 50 or 100x from here for Gala. So, not a horrible play. Again, probably a pretty simple one. Chris asked us to take a look at Bitcoin Cash. Let's take a look at how this is kind of progressing here. Don't want futures contract though. So something to note here, you've broken out of the 200 daily, the 200 weekly, and the 21 MA on the weekly chart. You broke out of the falling wedge, had the retest double bottom, so now you've created like a cup and handle, and you're breaking out of that and retested the 200 weekly. So technically there's some bullish signs here. Something to heed would be this bearish divergence on the weekly. I would watch for potentially a little more sideways or down from there. But let's take a look at the daily. Let's get a little closer picture. This may take a little more consolidation. You may have to see an actual retest of this 200 weekly or even the 200 daily, or see some type of cross on those before this actually really starts to heat up again. You can slice that triangle a couple different ways though, and if you look at that, if that's an ascending triangle, there should be more gas in the tank on that move, and you would be looking at a move up to close to $1,000. So you could potentially double up on Bitcoin Cash in the short term. I would just watch your entry and try to refine that a little bit. But all right, if we take a look at how the rest of the market moved recently after we had this dip down on the 4 hour, there was kind of this sort of sideways and up retest to 21 MA, and it looks like it's holding that. So if we chop that up like that, that'll get you going to like 825. So I would look for those levels on like a swing. All right. And as far as like, higher time frames, where this could go, I don't know if this thing will outperform Bitcoin again or not, but 2600, 4200. Ooh, and the devil's level. Maybe around 6660, So
This is a fantastic example of what you can chart and what is potentially there with any asset that's got ETF narratives behind it, because I don't know if there's actually an ETF that's being prepped for Bitcoin Cash, but that's my understanding based upon what I've been.
right on.
So I'll
And
get some
yeah,
information on that.
again, I would say if you're playing any of these assets, just have a plan, be aware of where it could go. If it goes there, maybe have a sell set for that level, at least for part of your bag, so that you can have some exit liquidity. But this would be one that, you would potentially even be able to play a little bit of leverage on. But as always, be very careful. Not financial advice. If you haven't been trading in this market for a while, don't mess around with leverage if you're not sure what you're doing. Wanted to take a look at Solana as well. Let's take a look at Sol. My mentor, the crypto lifer, did buy $100,000 worth of Solana right around $100 level. So he's up pretty good on that bag. Thousands of dollars that he's made there. And Solana, oh my goodness. All right. Well, this thing's it's absolutely going to rip. And, I've heard more conservative price projections from people who are looking at Solana. And full disclosure, I'm not holding Solana. If you're holding Solana, congratulations. I really hope that you're enjoying the gains. I just hate the project personally, and I don't want to hold it. With that in mind, this chart is very bullish. You've broken out of the 786 fib. This is the same type of price action that you're seeing with Bitcoin, where it broke out of the 786 fib. But when I see the oscillators on the weekly here, this is just getting started on the stochastics, and this thing just bounced off of the overbought territory here. So, oh my gosh, I look at this and it just, $1,000 seems very, very likely, and $2,000 seems probable. So, looking at Solana, it just looks like one of the more bullish moves in the market. And if you're in this coin, kudos to you, hats off. You should be making a lot of money. Should be making a lot of money, especially if you got in anywhere in this range, anywhere even below around $30 or $40. Especially if you got in below like 10 or 20, you're in great profit. So I don't see anything holding this back right now. It's just getting started on the weekly. So if I were holding this, I wouldn't even sell it. I would be looking for 4 figures before I even thought about unloading any of it.
And for anyone that's holding this asset as a risk management play, I think it's a good idea to hold a small percentage of this bag off chain, ideally a decentralized exchange, in the event that there is a blockchain halt. Because there have been 11 blockchain halts on Solana, and every time it's happened, the price has dumped relatively, substantial. So
some of them were pretty violent, yeah. So good advice as always, sir. Let's see, you wanted to take a look at Zilliqa as well, right?
Yes, I did. I'm interested to see what mainnet 2.0 is going to do for them.
And this is an older coin. Can this coin come back? My first estimation, just from looking at this chart, is yes. And this coin is actually likely to moon, just based on this chart. Wow.
It got up to 18 cents in the last run before it started rejecting.
So here's how I'm going to cut this up.
To get to $1 at one point, but I guess we'll have to see.
I'm going to cut this up like a falling broadening wedge. I could cut it up a couple different ways, right? I could cut it up like this too, right? Where it's in this kind of a channel. But to me, this is significant what this pattern is doing here. This is a very, very bullish type of a scenario. So what you would be looking for is a breakout of the 200 weekly. That's sitting around just above 5 cents. If this coin breaks out of 5 cents, it's going to come up and test the spider line here. That's going to be around 16 to 17 cents level. So again, you've got a low risk play here right now where you can just set it and forget it. Probably get a simple 5x play. All right. If this breaks out of this formation and this is established as support, this spider line, then you have to look at this as a full measured move potential scenario where you could see $15 on this coin. So that would represent a huge swing. Obviously, I'm not saying that is guaranteed to happen by any means. If we play some fibs here, that'll probably give us a little more conservative type of a play. But if you look at your log scale, it's very typical for a lot of these coins to play out actually just south of the 2.618 extension on the log. So this is totally possible to see $15 for this thing. So to me, it's very low risk. You buy it now. You take your initial investment out, you can even take a little bit out around the golden pocket around 9 cents, a little bit more up around the 786 around 13 cents, and at the top of the formation around 16 or 17 cents. Just make sure you're getting your initial investment out, and you can potentially see this thing moon. Everything that I'm looking at that has this type of market structure are coins that I believe can really, really do damage in this market. And a couple of other ones that I'm looking at that have very similar market structure are VRA, which is one that I'm starting to hear a lot of chatter about. Um, and there's some fundamentals behind that, and all kinds of stuff, really, narratives and everything with that one. So check that one out on your own time if you haven't. But there's other coins that I see with this market structure as well. MTV is a smaller one. Atom is another one. These charts just all look very, very similar. So, I recognize these patterns as soon as I see them. And this type of a market structure where you see this thing making this significant higher low and establishing a nice double bottom. And again, what is this? Winner, winner, chicken dinner. That is your Adam and Eve double bottom. We're just at the point where we're getting ready to break out of that. So this is a winner to me, folks. This is a winner. What was the other one that you wanted to look at? Syndex? SYNDX?
Yeah, Syndicate X, yeah. It's a
hadn't heard
very
of that
new
one.
project. It's a token that's on the it's actually a subchain of the Theta network. Syndicate X.
So it's not on
I don't know if
TradingView.
there's- Yeah, but it's not on TradingView. It's the problem is that
Would it maybe be on
I
Dex
think the only
Screener?
liquidity. It might be on Dex Screener because the only liquidity it has right now is on Theta Swap. To my knowledge.
Verifying you are human. It's not giving me that there either. So we got to figure out where that's at if you're going to buy it. We got to figure out what Dex that's on. So we'll do a little
It's
research
definitely
on that
Theta
one.
Swap. It's absolutely on Theta Swap.
Okay. So, yeah, hey, and that may be something that maybe we can figure out how to get our hands on that and maybe do a video for it or something to help people out.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
especially for me, who, I'm a borderline boomer, even though I've been in IT for 14 years. I'm still, borderline Gen X boomer, and when it comes to some of this stuff in crypto, it is a little bit, I don't want to say it's intimidating, but I just don't want it to feel like work. I want to be able to click a few buttons and make it simple. And, some of this stuff is a little bit more steps than I like to get involved with. But if we have a process that we can walk through and, we can take a look at it, I may consider taking an allocation on that because I'm very interested in Theta, and I'm a little disappointed that I didn't get in at the lows on that one because I knew it was going to be a good coin. And I feel like it's run away on me a little bit. So I'd like to be able to get in on the ecosystem if there's some plays to be made there.
Well, Syndicate X. Keep in mind, these are projects that are sitting on Theta. They don't have any. This isn't a token of the Theta network itself. So if you're just looking for a
I
project
see what you're
to
saying.
invest in,
Okay.
yeah, that's what you should go after there. As for obtaining it, it's pretty simple. There's a swap button inside of the Theta web wallet. When you access your wallet, you simply click on that, and then you can choose one of your assets that you have inside of your wallet, whether it's Theta, Theta Fuel, whatever it is, and then set your source asset, and then your destination asset will be, the Syndicate X token, and then you do your swap, and then within about 30 seconds, it's sitting in your wallet. So it's different tokens have different fees in terms of how much T fuel you have to pay to do a swap. But it's my understanding it's very inexpensive. It's like just a few cents per transaction.
Gotcha.
So it's very inexpensive to do that. You can also obtain Theta Drop and more Theta Fuel or whatever Theta token you want to have access to there as well, including Levita, which is an AI token, privacy-focused healthcare AI project. So
Yeah, I know you've been talking about that one as well. That sounded like a good project too.
That one I'm pretty sure is available on TradingView. It has not moved much. It did have a little bit of a pump and then kind of settled down, but that was whenever the TNT20 token launch came around. And it's also stakeable. You get about 50% APY staking Levita, and you can do it inside of the Theta wallet, and the tokens stay in your wallet. You're not sending them to somebody else. It's not an LP staking situation. The only time that you would have to send it to another wallet for staking is if you use MetaMask. But what's great about Theta Network now is that they've actually built their own Wallet Connect infrastructure to where you don't even have to use MetaMask anymore to interact with the DEX. It simply is integrated with their base wallet infrastructure now, which is exactly something that was actually something that I suggested to them at one of their AMAs, and they implemented it. So
Wow,
I
nice.
was very pleased that they did that. Yeah. So all you need is a key store file to gain access to their DEX, just like you can with ThorSwap. So
Yeah, Levita doesn't look all bad either. I mean, I see a little bit of like a descending triangle vibe, but we've also seen Dogecoin break out of this same pattern because you've got the bullish divergence, right? So that's kind of what I'm looking at on the daily here. You could, oh wait, I'm on Levana. That's not what we want. I'm sorry. It's, what is it?
It's
Levita? Yeah.
LAVITA.
L-A-V-I-T-A. Oh, okay, so it's not on XC. That's where I screwed up. Okay. That's an AI play, huh?
It is. It sure is.
Okay.
So it's sitting right around 2 cents support right now, roughly speaking. It's like I said, it hasn't been around long. Its all-time high is is around 13 cents, and that was its issue price 4 months ago. So its all-time low was around 0.4 of a cent. So we're looking at about 5x gains from the all-time low. So it's moved a little bit.
Yeah, I think we may have had a little more variance on Gate since it dropped there. That was what, end of last year. So not sure how long it's been around or been available, but that's like the earliest chart that I've got. But you've got a little bit of an ascending triangle.
Was the first listing. They got it on Gate and Gate.io and Bitmart. Those are the two liquidity sources other than Theta Swap. But again, these coins are very early in their history, and these are on Theta Network. And since I'm so bullish on Theta Network over almost every other project out there, them and of course Cosmos, Atom, I think these are going to anything that's interoperability. This is how money gets moved intercontinentally. This is how blockchains get moved intercontinentally. And geopolitically, when we see these undersea cables getting cut, that's really immutable infrastructure's selling point is conflict, and that's why you go after these plays is immutable infrastructure, things that have permanence, not just on the internet, but in terms of their ability to support the functioning of a national ecosystem for exchange of any kind. So I think that as it relates to critical infrastructure, decentralized physical infrastructure networks, DPIN, is already having its field day in the crypto markets. It seems to be the first thing, along with some meme coins kind of moving right now. So that's not simply to say, yeah, you're following the trend and the trend is your friend, but I think, in my opinion, that this is what crypto is really meant to do, not just move funds, but to keep things functional.
That's a very, very good way of putting things, and that's part of the reason why I'm a little averse to Solana. So, with that said,
because it's gone down so many times.
Yeah,
as has Zilliqa. So because Zilliqa had the same problem Solana did, blockchain halts. So
with that said, some people kind of
have to figure those.
Yeah, some people kind of compare it to Windows, where you used to see blue screens. You don't see the blue screens quite as often, but I for me, if you're going to start building a cellular network on something, you want it to have uptime, and you don't want to have these types of outages. So, in my IT experience, when you see the the cellular network providers have a cable that gets cut that creates a huge problem. It's a huge outage that affects multiple businesses. So you really are at a point where, hey, this technology is out here, you can utilize it. Why utilize technology that isn't able to do that? It's partly the speed, I'm sure, because obviously Solana, it's very high transaction network, but at the same time, there's certain things that you're sacrificing, and people want uptime when it comes to cellular networks. You don't want an emergency and you can't use your phone. So that's just my feel on it.
This is the entire network we're talking about. Yeah, this is
Mm-hmm.
the entire network. If you have a blockchain halt and all of your cellular infrastructure is on that blockchain, suddenly you have a telecommunications outage, which means that an adversary simply has to go after one blockchain to take down all of your comms. It's not smart. You got to have things that actually have decentralization. If you're looking at things that say they're decentralized and they're going down 2 to 3 times a year, they aren't decentralized.
Bada bing.
It's as simple as that.
So I think we can leave off on that note, sir. I do thank you for joining me again. Anything that you really want to leave us off on? Or, any parting thoughts?
Well, it's a great show, not just because I'm on the show, but because we can dive deep, and I appreciate that. And yeah, I just wanted to thank the audience for taking the time to tune in, and thank you, Jason, for diving into all of these projects with such detail. Look forward to hitting you up next week for the next one.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate your presence as always. It's always a gem, and thanks anyone who was listening in. I appreciate the audience out there. If you made it this far, we're almost at the hour-and-a-half mark for this podcast. On your way out, if you haven't, please honk the like button for us, folks. Get subscribed to the channel and hit the bell for notifications as well. We'll bring you these podcasts going forward, hopefully in a timely manner. And my name is Jason Bruce. This has been Crypto Clown World. Along with Christopher Lundy, I am signing off. Take care of yourselves, folks. Much love. God bless. We'll see you soon.